He spilled $500 wine on my $1,000 coat and called me cheap at my own 60th birthday party. My wife smiled. My daughter looked away. They thought the old builder was finished. They forgot one thing. You can't demolish a foundation when the architect is still standing. If you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because sometimes the coldest betrayals happen in the warmest rooms. The wine was freezing. That was the first thing I felt. It hit my chest like a shockwave. I stood in the grand ballroom of my own home, the home I built. The music stopped. Everyone stared. Dark red Cabernet spread across my ivory coat. A $1,000 coat. Elizabeth, my wife, insisted I buy it. Thomas, you need to look the part, she had said. The part of the man who built half this city. Now wine dripped onto the marble floor. Drip, drip, drip. I looked at Kevin, my son-in-law. He held the empty crystal glass, casually. This was no accident. He stood too close, invading my space. The air between us crackled. He adjusted his expensive watch, a habit he had when he felt powerful. His eyes were bright, too bright. A predator sensing weakness. Oops, Kevin said. His voice dripped with sarcasm. He leaned closer. His breath was hot and sour. There, Thomas. Now you look as cheap as you really are. The insult hit harder than the wine. A punch to the gut. The room was silent. Everyone heard him. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. But inside something cracked. I turned to Elizabeth, my wife of 35 years. She sat at the head table, her hands folded perfectly, manicured nails tapping slightly on the linen. She wasn't horrified. She looked proud. A small smile played on her lips. She always liked Kevin's killer instinct. My stomach twisted. This was worse than I thought. Then I looked at Chloe, my daughter, my only child. She stared at the massive floral centerpiece, adjusting a perfect rose, pretending she hadn't seen, pretending she hadn't heard. Silence. Cowardly silence. My heart ached. The betrayal was sharp, immediate. They thought I was weak. An old man, a lucky construction worker who stumbled into money. They saw a relic, someone ready to crumble. But as the wine soaked through to my skin, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. The old Thomas died right there on the marble floor. The builder woke up, and he was ready for demolition. The jazz band started playing again. Elizabeth gave a sharp nod. The signal. The party resumed. Guests chatted. Politicians. Investors. The city's elite. But their eyes kept darting toward me. The stained man. Kevin. Really? Chloe whispered. Her protest was weak. Relax, Chloe. It's just a coat. Kevin laughed. He turned to the mayor. Thomas probably misses his old work jacket anyway. The man wouldn't know luxury if it bit him. Another laugh. Another knife. I stood there. Wet fabric clinging to me. I built Archer Properties from nothing. 40 years of sweat. Early mornings. Broken nails. I wasn't cheap. I was careful. I knew the value of $1 because I remembered what it felt like to not have one. If you'll excuse me, I said. My voice was strained. Quiet. I need to clean up. As I walked toward the restroom, I heard Elizabeth. Her laugh. Bright. Tinkling. Oh, Kevin, you're terrible, she said. But honestly, Thomas has been so stressed lately. He needed to lighten up. Lighten up. My humiliation was their entertainment. The betrayal was deeper than the stain on my coat. In the restroom, I looked in the mirror. The man looking back seemed older than 60. The stain was massive. Purple against ivory. I didn't scrub it. It felt symbolic. This stain was the greed that had infected my family. I took the coat off, folded it, left it on the counter. I walked back into the party in my shirt sleeves. Let them stare. The celebration felt like a mockery. This mansion felt like a museum. The cracks had been forming for months. Ever since Kevin married Chloe, I gave him a position in the company. My biggest mistake. It wasn't just the wine. It was 1,000 small cuts. Each one designed to make me feel small, irrelevant. The whole evening had been a setup, leading to that moment. It started with the toast. Earlier that night, Kevin took the microphone. He stood there, soaking in the attention. The room quieted. He looked at me, but not really at me. Through me. His confidence was staggering. We all admire Thomas's Rustic approach, Kevin said. He flashed his expensive teeth. Rustic, the polite word for crude. He built the foundation, but the future demands vision. Sophistication. I am excited to take Archer Properties into the modern era. He made me sound like old furniture. I gripped my champagne glass, hard. I thought it might snap. I saw Elizabeth nodding, approving. My success wasn't refined enough for her. She loved the money, hated the sweat. I was being erased in my own house. Then came the seating arrangement. For 20 years I sat at the center of the head table. It was my place. I walked to my usual spot. A man I didn't recognize was sitting there. I looked around, confused. I found my name card. Far left, next to an aging city councilman who smelled like mothballs. Kevin was in my seat, laughing with the mayor. Comfortable, like he belonged there. I looked at Elizabeth. I raised an eyebrow. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, Thomas, don't be difficult. Kevin needs to network tonight. It's logistics. Logistics. My life, my achievements. Reduced to logistics. I sat down. The chair felt wrong. The angle was wrong. Everything was wrong. But that wasn't the worst part. The pressure built when it was time for gifts. Chloe looked nervous. She twisted her wedding ring, a habit she picked up after marrying Kevin. She handed me a large flat package. I unwrapped it. It was a framed architectural rendering. It's the new headquarters, Dad, Chloe said. Her voice too bright, too forced. I stared at it. It was monstrous. Glass and twisted steel, cold, impersonal. It looked nothing like the solid brick building I was proud of. We're breaking ground next month, Kevin added. He slid his arm around Chloe's waist, possessive. It's time the company looked as powerful as it is. Spoke straight at me. Out with the old, Thomas. Out with the old. They weren't just planning a new building. They were planning my obsolescence. They were erasing my history, my identity. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. The final realization came just before the wine. I needed air. I stepped onto the balcony. The anger was boiling inside me. I heard Kevin's voice, near the bar. He was talking to key investors. He swirled his whiskey, confident, loud. He wanted to be heard. He was bragging. Thomas means well, Kevin was saying, but he's too cautious. This market, you have to be aggressive. That's why I finalized the waterfront deal this afternoon. It's a game changer. My blood ran cold. The waterfront deal, I had explicitly vetoed it last week. A massive high-rise development, wildly overpriced, financing unstable, permits a mess, a house of cards waiting to collapse. He went behind my back. He was risking my entire company on a gamble. The wine incident wasn't just an insult. It was a public declaration of dominance, and my family's reaction, Elizabeth's pride, Chloe's silence, that was the first undeniable betrayal. They had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. The people I worked my entire life for had united against me. The foundation was cracking, and they were the ones swinging the sledgehammers. I didn't return to the party after the restroom. I slipped out the side door. The valet brought my car. His eyes lingered on my damp shirt. Rough night, Mr. Archer, he asked quietly. You have no idea, I replied. I drove through the city streets. Silence in the car, thick and heavy. The skyline glittered. My skyline, a legacy Kevin was dismantling. When I got back to the mansion, the party was still loud. Music, laughter. I didn't go back in. I went straight to my study, the only room that still felt like mine. It smelled of old leather and sawdust. My sanctuary. I sat in my leather chair. The weight of the betrayal crushed me. The waterfront deal. The way Kevin looked at Chloe, like a possession. Elizabeth, who loved the life I provided, never the man who provided it. I sacrificed everything for them. Missed dinners, school plays, vacations, all to build a secure future, 60, 70 hours a week, for decades. And this was my reward, to be discarded, laughed at, erased. I felt empty. The life I thought I had was a lie. I looked at a photograph on my desk. Me, 40 years ago. hard hat, grin. Standing in the mud at my first sight, I remembered the hunger, the ambition, the stubbornness. I was young, strong, fearless. I looked at my hands, softer now, but the strength was still there. The calluses were gone. The memory of hard work remained. I had become comfortable, complacent. I let them treat me like a relic because I started acting like one. I prioritized peace over truth, harmony over dignity. They want the kingdom, I whispered to the empty room. But they forgot who built it. This was the breaking point. Things could not continue. I couldn't let them destroy my legacy. The old Thomas was gone. I picked up the phone. I dialed the only person I could trust. Robert Harrison, my lawyer, my oldest friend. He was there since the beginning. Robert, I said, my voice low and steady, I need you at the office tomorrow. 6 a.m. And start digging into the waterfront deal quietly. Thomas, is everything all right? You left the party early, Robert said. Concerned. Everything is about to change, I said. I hung up. The war had begun. The next morning, the office. Before sunrise, the smell of stale coffee and printer ink. Comforting. My territory. Robert arrived at 6. He looked worried. He always rubbed his temples when he was worried. What's going on, Thomas? I told him everything. The insults. The power plays. The waterfront deal. If that deal goes sour, Thomas, it could bankrupt the company, Robert said, rubbing his temples harder. It's leverage to the hilt. Did you use the core assets as collateral? I did. Kevin did. He must have forged my signature, or coerced the board. We need to find out everything, Robert said. His lawyer brain, engaged. The financing, the partners, where the money is coming from, and where it's going. He looked at me, his eyes sharp. We need help. Someone specialized. Robert introduced me to Maria Silva, a young forensic accountant. Sharp, quiet. She didn't waste words. She wore glasses and had a nervous habit of tapping her pen. Mr. Archer, Kevin is smart, Maria said, her eyes scanning the preliminary documents. He covers his tracks well, but everyone makes mistakes. Arrogance makes people sloppy. She looked up. We'll find it, but you need to give us time. And cover. I started playing a new role, the defeated old man. I stopped going to the office every day. When I did show up, I sat in meetings quietly. I let Kevin take the lead. I stopped questioning his decisions. I sat quietly during family dinners. Elizabeth and Kevin discussed renovations, vacations, as if I wasn't there. They thought I was depressed. Pity and impatience. That was how they treated me. He's finally accepted reality, I heard Elizabeth tell Kevin. I was in the living room, pretending to nap. He's broken. They were wrong. I wasn't broken. I was focused, observing, waiting. I was the quiet before the storm. A week later, Robert called. Thomas, my office. Now, I arrived at Robert's downtown practice. Papers everywhere. Spreadsheets. Maria was there. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were bright. She stopped tapping her pen. We found the first crack. Maria said. She pointed to her computer screen. A complex diagram. The waterfront deal is a disaster, Robert said, but it's worse than a bad investment. Maria showed me the evidence, the first twist, the deeper betrayal. Kevin wasn't just reckless. He was actively sabotaging the company. He had used Archer Properties' assets as collateral, massive loans, high interest, but the money wasn't going into the project. Look here, Maria pointed. He's siphoning funds. Small amounts at first, then larger chunks. It's all going into this offshore account, Cayman Islands. I stared at the numbers, millions of dollars, my money, my company's future. He's embezzling, I said. The word tasted like ash. Yes, and he's doing it cleverly. Maria continued, masking the transfers, payments to dummy corporations, shell companies within shell companies. If the project fails, Robert started. If it fails, the company collapses. I finished. The loans are called in, and he walks away with millions. Hidden offshore, he wasn't just incompetent. He was a thief. A calculating criminal. He targeted my family. seduced my daughter, charmed my wife, all to steal my wealth. But we still didn't know the whole story. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. And Elizabeth and Chloe? I asked, dreading the answer. Robert sighed. We don't have concrete evidence they know about the embezzlement, but they are benefiting. Jewelry, cars, vacations, all paid for with the siphoned funds. Complicit, willfully blind, or actively involved. It didn't matter. We need more, I told them. We need to know why he's so sure the project will fail. It's risky, yes, but he seems certain of the collapse. There's something missing, Maria agreed. The financials show massive orders for premium materials, steel beams, concrete, but the payouts don't match the invoices. We needed an insider, someone on the ground. I knew just the man. Jack O'Connell, the site foreman for the waterfront project. Honest, hardworking. He'd been with me for 20 years. I called him, asked him to meet me at a dingy diner across town. Jack was a big man, rough hands, and always wore a faded baseball cap. He looked nervous when I arrived. "Mr. Archer, good to see you, sir," Jack said, stirring his coffee, his cap pulled low. "Heard you were taking it easy." "I'm not taking it easy, Jack," I said. "I'm worried about the waterfront." Jack looked around, lowered his voice. "You should be worried, sir, what Kevin is doing. It ain't right." "Jack, I know he's stealing," I said. "But there's something else. Tell me about the materials." Jack went pale. "He's cutting corners, sir, big time." He pulled a crumpled flash drive from his jacket pocket. He hesitated, looking at the door. His hands trembled slightly. He knew the danger. The invoices say premium-grade steel. But what arrived on site? Cheap imports, weak, brittle. The concrete mix? Watered down. The rebar? Half the required amount. He pushed the flash drive across the table. I took pictures, videos. I confronted him. He threatened to fire me. Said he'd ruin me. I stared at the flash drive. The missing piece. He wasn't just embezzling. He was building a death trap. A structure guaranteed to fail. He was willing to risk lives to cover his tracks. My stomach turned. The sheer evil of it was staggering. "He's ensuring the collapse," I whispered, the horrific end becoming clear. "It creates chaos. Hides the... He's a monster," Jack said, his voice shaking with anger. "That building will kill people, Mr. Archer. We had to stop him, not just for the company, but for the innocent people who might step inside that building." If this story is hitting home, drop a like. It helps more than you know, because the deeper we dug, the uglier the truth became. And we still hadn't hit rock bottom. We had the proof of embezzlement. We had the proof of sabotage. But we needed to move fast. We needed the authorities. Robert contacted the FBI, White Collar Crime Division. We met Agent Miller. Stern, efficient, he wore a plain suit and had eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Archer," Agent Miller said, reviewing the evidence Maria had compiled, and the flash drive from Jack. "This is compelling. Embezzlement, wire fraud, and reckless endangerment. On a massive scale. He's planning to flee the country," Maria added. "We tracked a large transfer scheduled just before the company gala, next month. That's his exit strategy." "We'll monitor the accounts," Agent Miller said. "We'll be ready to move when he makes the transfer. But we need to keep this quiet. If he suspects anything, he'll disappear." The net was tightening, but I still had to face my family every day. My transformation deepened. The pain turned into cold strategy. I needed to push Kevin into making that final transfer. I needed him to feel invincible. "I'm stepping down," I told my family that night at dinner. Kevin looked stunned, then triumphant. He adjusted his watch. The smirk returned. Elizabeth gasped. "Thomas, are you sure? I mean, perhaps it's for the best." But so suddenly, "Kevin has the vision," I said, looking directly at him. Forcing the words out felt like swallowing glass. "It's his time. I'll announce it publicly at the annual company gala. Until then, I'm handing over day-to-day operations. Effective immediately." Chloe looked down at her plate, twisting her ring. "If that's what you want, Dad." Silence. The trap was set. Kevin, emboldened, became reckless. He moved into my office, redecorated it, sterile modern furniture. He was arrogant. He believed he had neutralized me. While they planned their victory, I was busy securing the battlefield. Robert and I started moving my personal assets, the ones not tied to the company, setting up firewalls, ensuring that when Kevin fell, I would have the resources to rebuild. We were ready for the collapse, but I wasn't ready for the cruelty that came next. I came home early one afternoon, looking for a file in my study. The door was slightly ajar. I heard voices inside. Kevin and Elizabeth. The study is still too cluttered, Elizabeth said, contempt in her voice. It smells like sawdust and old paper. It's depressing. Don't worry, Elizabeth, Kevin replied. Smooth, arrogant. Once I'm officially CEO, we'll renovate this whole wing. But first we need to get rid of this junk. I pushed the door open. They stood in the center of the room, a large metal trash bin in front of them. Kevin was holding a small, worn wooden toolbox. My father's toolbox, the one he gave me when I started. His old tools, a hammer, a chisel, a level, rusted, worn, but they were my foundation. My history, my connection to the man who taught me hard work. What are you doing? I asked. My voice tight, barely controlled rage. They turned, startled. Elizabeth looked slightly embarrassed. Kevin just smirked. Cleaning up, Thomas, he said, holding the toolbox over the trash bin. You really need to let go of the past. It's holding you back. That was my father's, I said, stepping forward. Give it to me. Your father was a nobody, Kevin sneered. His eyes cold, cruel, a common laborer. This stuff is embarrassing. It belongs in the trash. He opened the toolbox, took the tools out. One by one, he examined the hammer. Disgusted. Look at this, he mocked. So cheap, so primitive. He dropped the hammer into the trash bin. Metal hitting metal, echoing in the silence. He picked up the level, the small glass tube, the bubble inside. My father taught me how to use it, how to ensure everything was straight, solid, balanced. And this, Kevin laughed. A cruel, sharp sound, a relic. He didn't just drop it. He threw it against the wall. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the level flying through the air. I saw the smug satisfaction on his face, the anticipation of my pain. Elizabeth stood by, silent. The glass shattered, the liquid spilled, the wood splintered, a sharp crack that echoed the breaking of my heart. I stood frozen, paralyzed. It wasn't just the tools. It was the destruction of my memories, my identity. He was enjoying it, savoring my pain, delighting in the destruction of something irreplaceable. You are a monster, I whispered. I am a visionary, Kevin corrected, his eyes gleaming with triumph, and visionaries don't have time for sentimentality. Now, excuse us, we have work to do. He brushed past me, dismissive. Elizabeth followed him, closed the door, leaving me alone. With the shattered remnants of my history, I knelt down, picked up the broken pieces. The smell of the spilled liquid filled the air. A single tear escaped, fell onto the floor. That moment hardened my resolve into steel. I wasn't just going to save my company. I was going to dismantle Kevin's life, piece by piece, just like he dismantled my past. Robert, Maria, Jack, and I finalized the plan with Agent Miller. The FBI was ready. The evidence was airtight. We just had to wait for the gala. Wait for Kevin to initiate the final transfer. We were ready for the demolition. The night of the gala, the Grand Hyatt ballroom. Glittering gowns, tuxedos, the city's elite. Hundreds of people, here to witness the changing of the guard, the handover of Archer properties. Kevin was in his element, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, acting like he owned the world. Slick in his tailored tuxedo, Elizabeth was beaming, clinging to his arm, enjoying her new status. Chloe stood next to them, beautiful, pale, a shadow, twisting her ring nervously. I waited in the wings, my heart pounding. This was it, the culmination, the moment of truth, the no-escape collision. Robert stood next to me. He just initiated the transfer. Thomas, Robert whispered, checking his phone. The money is moving. Agent Miller is in position. It's time, I said. The lights dimmed. The current CEO took the stage. A short speech. History. Achievements. And now, he announced, the man who built this empire, Thomas Archer. I walked onto the stage, into the spotlight. Polite applause. They thought this was a farewell speech. They thought I was handing over the keys. I stood at the podium, looked out at the sea of faces. Employees, investors, my family. Thank you, I started. My voice clear, strong. 40 years ago, I started this company with a borrowed shovel and a belief in hard work. I believed that if you built something of value, something lasting, you built a legacy. I paused. Kevin nodded encouragingly, eager for the praise. But a legacy is fragile, I continued. My tone shifted. The warmth left my voice. It can be undermined by greed, destroyed by betrayal, and stolen by those who believe they are entitled to what they did not earn. A murmur through the crowd. The atmosphere changed. Instantly, the air crackled with tension. Kevin's smile faltered. Elizabeth looked confused, then alarmed. We are here tonight to talk about the future, I said. But first, we must confront the truth about the present. I signaled to the AV team. The large screens on either side of the stage changed. They didn't show growth charts. They showed spreadsheets, bank statements, wire transfers, offshore accounts, Cayman Islands. The room gasped. A collective intake of breath, louder than any applause. Kevin went white, pale under the lights. This, I announced, pointing to the screen, my voice echoing in the stunned silence, is where the future of Archer Properties has been going. An offshore account controlled by my son-in-law, Kevin Miller. The screens shifted again. Loan documents, forged signatures, evidence of embezzlement, millions of dollars, siphoned, risking everything. He gambled your investments, your livelihoods, and then stole the funds, I said. Looking directly at Kevin, the screens changed again. Jack O'Connell's photos. Cheap steel, watered-down concrete. The waterfront site. The waterfront deal was never meant to succeed, I said, my voice rising in anger. It was a smokescreen for theft. He used substandard materials, creating a death trap, all to maximize his theft. He risked lives to hide his greed. Kevin jumped to his feet, face contorted in rage. This is a lie. He's fabricating this. The old man is delusional.
He can't stand that I'm taking over. He's trying to destroy me.
The numbers don't lie, Kevin, I said calmly, my voice cutting through the chaos. The photos don't lie. The forged signatures don't lie. Elizabeth stood up, face red with fury. Thomas, how dare you? How dare you ruin us like this? Stop this immediately. You're embarrassing yourself. The embarrassment is yours, Elizabeth, I said, looking at her with pity and disgust. You sided with a thief against your own husband. You were so desperate for status that you ignored the truth. You watched him destroy my history, and you said nothing. Chloe was sobbing, hands covering her face. Dad, please, she whispered, choked with tears. Chaos erupted. Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Investors shouted. But the final blow came when the doors at the back opened. It wasn't hotel security. It was Agent Miller and his team, flanked by police officers. Maria, Jack, and Robert stood behind them. They walked purposefully toward the front table. Kevin Miller? Agent Miller asked, looking at the pale, trembling man who thought he was a king. Kevin stared, speechless, trapped. The mask slipped. The desperate animal underneath revealed, you are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, grand larceny, and reckless endangerment. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut, the sweetest sound I had ever heard. As the agents dragged Kevin away, he looked back at me, eyes burning with hatred. I will destroy you, Thomas. You hear me? I will destroy you. You already tried, I said, my voice cold as ice. And you failed. The demolition was complete. The fallout was brutal. Front page news. The scandal rocked the city. Kevin was indicted. The waterfront deal collapsed. The half-built structure was demolished. Jack's bravery saved lives. The company took a massive hit. Stock plummeted, but we had planned for this. I used the personal assets I secured, stabilized the company, protected my employees. We saved it. Damaged, but standing. It would take years to rebuild. Elizabeth didn't speak to me. The first communication was a divorce petition. Her social standing was gone. The money was tied up in recovery. She wanted out. I let her go. A generous settlement. Enough to live comfortably, not enough for the extravagance she craved. The control I once gave her was gone. She left the mansion, taking her expensive art and cold elegance, leaving behind the ruins of our marriage. The house finally felt like mine again. The hardest part was Chloe, devastated, ashamed, lost. Her husband was a criminal. Her mother had abandoned her, and she'd betrayed her father. She came to my study a few days later. I'd cleaned the room. I retrieved the tools Kevin had thrown away. The hammer, the chisel, cleaned them, placed them back in the toolbox. The broken level was gone. The memory remained. Chloe looked small, broken.
Eyes red from crying. Dad,
She whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about the stealing. I swear, he lied to me. He told me you were holding the company back, that you were selfish. I know you didn't know about the stealing, I said softly, my voice heavy with exhaustion. But you knew how he treated me. You heard the insults. You saw the disrespect. You watched him pour wine on me, and you chose to look away, Chloe. You chose silence. She flinched, the truth hitting home. I was weak. He manipulated me. Mom said you were too controlling, too old-fashioned. She said Kevin was the future. The future, I repeated, shaking my head. I love you, Chloe. You are my daughter. But love is not enough. Trust must be rebuilt. And you need to figure out who you are, without Kevin, without your mother's influence, without my money. I told her I was cutting her off. She needed a job, support herself, learn the value of $1, tough love. The hardest decision I ever made, but necessary. I couldn't enable her weakness anymore. She nodded. Sobbing, I held her. Rebuilding this relationship would be the hardest project of my life. And unlike my buildings, I wasn't sure if the foundation was still solid. Months later, the dust settled. I was back in my old office. The sterile modern furniture was gone, replaced by the solid oak desk I loved. The company was recovering, slowly, building something solid again, based on integrity. Hard work. Jack O'Connell was promoted to VP of Operations. Maria Silva was my new CFO. We were stronger now, leaner. I stood at my office window, looking out at the city skyline. My skyline. I was alone, but not lonely. I had lost my family, or the illusion of it. But I had saved my legacy. I had saved my integrity a year later. My 61st birthday. Not in a ballroom, in my study. With Robert. A simple meal, good whiskey. I wore a simple wool coat, practical, durable, honest. Not the cashmere coat that had been ruined. The phone rang. Chloe. She called every week now. She had a job, an apartment. She was finding her strength. Happy birthday, Dad, she said. Her voice was stronger, clearer. Thank you, sweetheart, I replied. It was a start, a foundation we could build on. Robert handed me a small, wrapped gift. I opened it. It was a vintage level, exactly like my father's. The one Kevin shattered. The wood smooth and dark, the glass clear. To keep things balanced, Robert said, smiling. I held the level in my hands, feeling the weight, the history. Tears welled in my eyes. A single teardrop fell onto the wood. Thank you, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. The scars of the dature were still there. They always would be. But the wound was closed. I'd torn down the broken structure of my life. and started rebuilding from the foundation. The night of my 60th birthday, when the wine dripped down my coat, I thought it was the end. It was the beginning, the moment I reclaimed my life. I looked at the level, the bubble perfectly centered. I finally felt peace. Thanks for listening to this journey. If you felt the weight of this story, please rate it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Your support means everything because your time matters.